If I had to boil down what I'm about to say to a single message, it would be this. The way you live your life is wrong. And that's okay. Well, until it isn't. What I would like to talk to you today are the situations in which you make your decisions based on the best of your understanding of the situation, when you apply your capabilities in order to solve a challenge that life throws at you, and you're doing a great job. But also about situations in which you fail miserably at making decisions. I would like to talk to you about making a distinction between these two situations, and also what we can understand about this difference in order to make our lives better. Human beings are a fascinating species. Well, since we appeared on the face of the earth, we've made an incredible progress. Well, just a while ago, a couple of seconds ago in geological terms, we roamed the savannas, the steppes, we hunted, on our feet, following the prey, and we were really at the mercy of the environment and at the mercy of other predators. Well, thanks to science, thanks to technology, we're living in the age where we genetically modify our crops, when we cannot control the weather yet, but we can more or less predict it. And as far as the means of transportation go, well, I don't know if you know, but our cars are about to drive themselves. So it's a huge progress. Thanks to science, thanks to understanding the world around us and acting upon this knowledge. Well, we haven't stopped here, right? Just a while ago, remember, we landed on the moon? And almost 2 years ago, we landed a probe on a comet. I'll let that sink in. A probe on a comet. It's just like, throwing a speck of dust and hoping it will land on a raindrop. How cool is that? Thanks to science and technology, thanks to a better understanding of reality and acting upon this knowledge. Yet for some reason, I don't quite understand, there are still some domains of our lives that we leave to intuition. Some domains of our lives in which we just, stop being Homo sapiens sapiens. We stop being, the thinking, reasoning man or woman, and we just, follow our intuition. And that's it. The domains of, health for some of us, the domains of management, the domains of public policy, the domains of personal relationships. And I find it puzzling. I find it fascinating. The fact that we would never, ever send a probe to a comet using intuitive physics. The majority of us wouldn't go to a doctor that graduated from International Medical School of, intuitive medicine. We wouldn't do that. But we have absolutely no problem with making management decisions based on our guts, with making our interpersonal relationship decisions based on our feelings, with making our political decisions based on our emotions. But there's a better way. But before we go into that, I would like to think about what are the reasons behind it. And in order to do that, I would like to show you a slide in a second. But I will only show it for about 5 seconds, and it contains words that have meanings. It's basically a task, a question. And I would like you to answer this question. So if it's possible, if you have, notes, pens, or you have your smartphones or laptops, please have them ready to write down the answer. Okay? Yeah, this is what I expect. This is the sound I expect. Okay, so here it goes. It will only be on the screen for 5 seconds, so get ready. A racket and ball cost $1.10. The racket costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Okay. So how many of you have answered 10? Raise your hands. 10, 10. How many of you have answered 10? I see some, okay, there. So you're in a very good company. More than 50% of Ivy League students also have answered it wrong. Because the right answer isn't 10, obviously, because it is 5 cents. And I would like to make it very, very clear. This is not a trick question. There's not a single trick there. Because if you look at the task again, if you look at the question again and follow it step by step, you'll see that we're dealing with primary school level math. Right? If it were 10 cents, the racket would cost $1 more, $1.10, altogether $1.20. Ta-da, it's wrong. If it's 5 cents, on the other hand, $1 more is $1.05, together $1.10. Primary school level math. But for some reason, those of you that have answered 10 are looking at this slide right now and are thinking, nah, that just doesn't feel right, although you know the answer. Well, yaha, because this is the right answer. There is something going on in our brains, and it happened in my brain when I first saw this task, because 10 is so obvious, that reflects the conflict between the two ways that we think when we think about the world. And we tend to have two modes of thinking about the challenges that we come across during our lifetime. One is very fast. It's intuitive. It provides us with rapid answers to anything that happens in our lives. The second mode of thinking, system 2, is deliberate. It's slow. It's systematic. It provides us with better answers, but in a way that a lot of us finds, well, just too damn slow. Those two systems of our thinking, by the way, are in constant conflict with each other. One of the systems usually wins. I think that you know which. Intuition, emotions are very good at winning the conflict between the two systems. For the reason that Daniel Kahneman, the author of this distinction, calls the law of the least effort. The law of the least effort. I don't know if you agree, but thinking is hard. Like, thinking is a pain in the ass. Like you just have to, sometimes you have to just force yourself to systematically think about reality, while emotions, well, they come easy. They just appear. They help us make decisions in our day-to-day lives. And that's cool. That's fine in majority of situations, right? First, system 1 saves us time. Let's imagine you go to a grocery store with a simple task of choosing the right cheese for supper. That's a simple task. And imagine that system 2 gets involved and says, okay, cool, that's an easy task. So let's start with creating an Excel sheet. Okay, so let's separate the kinds of cheese. Let's analyze the nutritional value of cheese. Then maybe create some regression analysis, and then, from the best to the worst, and then let's make the final call. Well, that would take eternity. System 1 says, let's use some shortcut. Let's use some stereotype like, I don't know, there has never been a bad cheese from Italy. That's fair enough. And you go to a grocery store and say, hey, that's cheese from Italy. Case solved. System 1 saves not only time, system 1 can save lives. Imagine this. You're going down dark alley, and you see a young person at the end of the alley, and they're wearing a sweatsuit. That's cool. But they also have a baseball bat with them. And that's still cool. So let's imagine the two systems analyzing the situation. System 2 would say, okay, let's think about it. Okay, so what is the probability that a young person in a sweatsuit would go to a baseball match right now? What is the frequency of, baseball fields around this place? So let's think about, and too late, you're already dead. While system one would say, okay guys, let's just get the hell out of there, okay, right now. And you know what? If you did that, maybe you have just hurt some baseball players' feelings. Maybe it was just like, oh man, not again. But maybe system one just saved your life. And that's not a problem. You know when we have a problem? When we start to use system one to solve system two challenges. When we use system one to answer system two questions. Questions like, I don't know, what should the abortion law be in Poland? Questions like, I don't know, what provides me with happiness? Questions like, how should I motivate my employees? Complex questions that ultimately lead to very important consequences. When you use your intuition, your gut feeling, your emotions for that, you tend to end up with suboptimal solutions. I would like to use an example that I face a lot in my experience. Being an organizational psychologist and sociologist, I tend to be asked two types of questions. One is how to be a better leader, how to manage better. And the second one is how to be a better person, how to be happy. And I don't know if you agree with me, but according to me, these are system two questions. Because they are complex, the answers to them is pretty much complicated, but at the same time, ultimately they lead to very important consequences for people and for organizations. So I believe that we should address those types of questions with an evidence-based approach that tends to have three separate steps that I would like to talk about now. Step one, question. Step two, learn. And step three, experiment. And let me unpack it for you. When I say question, I mean try to get to the bottom of the source of information about a given subject. So when it comes to leadership or when it comes to happiness, there is a lot of information out there about what works, what will get you results. When it comes to management and leadership, you will hear management gurus all over the world talking to you about what works. Things like, I don't know, you should be more inspiring. You should be more authoritative. Or you should be focused on meditation, because if you meditate enough, ultimately you'll be a better leader. Well, my favorite suggestion is that you should be more emotionally intelligent, because the leaders that have high levels of emotional intelligence are the greatest leaders in the world. So in step one of my approach, you should ask, how do you know that? Like, how do you really know that emotional intelligence leads to better decisions in leadership? And actually, if you ask this question to the proponents of emotional intelligence, they will say, well, because we have a bunch of studies done. Okay, and then you ask them, could you show us the results of the studies? Could you show us the data? They will say, no. They are top secret, we have them right there in the back, but we will not ever show you. And that's suspicious. With happiness, it's even more complicated, because you have all the gurus in the world talking to you about the things that you should do in order to achieve happiness. Things like, I don't know, you should get a job that you love. Or you should get married and have children. Or you should get rich, or die trying, whatever. But then you might ask, how do you know that? And they will very often quote their own experience, their own anecdotes, how they found out the path to true happiness. But anecdotes do not ever constitute evidence. Step one, criticize what you've heard so far. Only then you can move to the next steps. And there is no easy way of saying that. In step 2, you have to learn what the state of the knowledge is right now. So you have to have some levels of scientific literacy in order to understand what has been established in the area right now. So for example, in the case of leadership, we know what might work. For example, we know that leaders who are convinced that their team is great behave in the way that makes teams great. So you have this self-fulfilling prophecy of leadership there. We also know that you can develop charisma. For many people, this is surprising because we tend to believe this myth that you are either born with charisma or not. You're either charismatic or you will never be charismatic. But that's not true. You can actually train charisma, which ultimately leads to better performance as a leader. With happiness, it's similar. We have established some facts about how to achieve it. Things like, if you have money to spend it on experiences and not things. If you have, I don't know, 2,000 zlotys, do not spend it on a smartphone. Spend it on vacation. Even better, spend it on charity, because that boosts your happiness like crazy. Be grateful. Start a gratitude journal. We know that this has tremendous effect on happiness. After you establish the facts, you can move to step 3, which is experiment. Because even though we have established some facts about various important domains of our lives, you don't actually know whether it will work for you or for your own organization. This is why you have to be your own experimental scientist. Take the conclusions from the second phase and apply it in your own life, in your personal life, in your organizational life, and then measure what the results are. Experiment, reframe, verify, and find the solution, evidence-based solution that's right for you. There's a great quote from Stephen Hawking, and it goes like this. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. And if you apply this 3-step approach to this quote, the first thing that you'll find is that Stephen Hawking never actually said that. Although you can find it all over the place, right? That this is what Stephen Hawking said. Well, he did not. This is misattributed. But at the same time, the truth behind it is still there. And it is this. You should always question the accepted truths about the domains that are important. You should seek out established knowledge about the domains that are important. And ultimately, you should test whether those truths work for you and for your organization. This is the path to answering key questions. This is the path to evidence-based life. Thank you very much.